Some of the nation's most elite, most powerful lawyers are right here in Las Vegas.
I don't care who you are. It is your responsibility and privilege to follow the law in this country.
Paul Pata, a former federal prosecutor and rated as one of the top 100 lawyers in the nation by his peers. Christian Morris has already proven her skills in and out of the courtroom.
You've heard from the other side. Now let me tell you the facts.
Well, I'm a Vegas lawyer. On this episode today, we're going to have Lenny Fink, who's a trial lawyer here in Las Vegas, been a lawyer for over 25 years. And we're going to talk about what everyone else is talking about, of course, and that's Michael Cohen and his plea bargain. We're going to bring in Lenny right now. Hey, Lenny, how are you?
Good, how are you? Good afternoon.
Excellent. What did Michael Cohen do, and in your opinion, why did he plead guilty?
Well, I mean, I think what he did is kind of nebulous. What he pled to was violation, from what I understand, of the 2016 Campaign Reform Act, which is an individual giving more than $2,700 to a general election campaign. He pled guilty to a fraud count and then to tax evasion claim. Why he did it, he was facing serious jail time and obviously had a lot of pressure, and there's probably political pressure involved too. But you know, if there's something that they have on you, a plea bargain is generally the better way to go.
They're linking what he did as far as, let's be specific, paying Stormy Daniels $130,000 in hush money, allegedly, to keep quiet about an alleged affair with President Trump. And so that payment was in consideration of the campaign, and that's the linkage there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's certainly ended up. There's actually two different payments involved. There's the $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, who claimed that she had an affair with President Trump before he was president, and also there was $150,000 for a story that another woman, Karen McDougal, had against again before he was the president, and I'm not sure what that all entailed. I think it was another affair. But what he did, at least on the Stormy Daniels side, is he allegedly, or I think he pled to this, is that he took a loan out on his house for $500,000, and then he took $130,000 of that $500,000 and he paid off Ms. Daniels. Part of what he also pled to apparently was that he misrepresented his financial status in getting that $500,000 loan, and I think misrepresented that he didn't have $14 million in debt. So the idea is that he took the $130,000, paid off Ms. Daniels, and then he take the $130,000 charged back to the Trump business, and I don't remember the name of the overall business, charge it back to them as legal fees. They paid the legal fees, and so that's how it came back. And so what they're saying is, and personally I think it's a stretch. I don't know if
no one's ever been convicted of this crime, has they? In fact, they tried to convict John Edwards of the same crime, and he was found not guilty. Because you have to prove that the intent to pay off Stormy Daniels was specifically linked to the campaign and not linked to President Trump's at the time prior to being, again, let's make this clear. This was before he became president. Right. And so this payment happened before he was in the White House. And so he may have tried to pay off Miss Daniels so his wife didn't find out. That could be one of his intentions.
Correct. You know, and let's assume all of that's true, which we don't know. I believe that's correct as far as Mr. Edwards, and I don't know that I'm aware of anybody else being prosecuted and convicted under that Campaign Reform Act. But you're absolutely right. We're talking about something or some things that happened before Mr. Trump was president, and I think even happened before he ran for president. So you're right. In certain situations, these kind of things could or would happen for a person trying to keep that quiet, having nothing to do with trying to be elected. But here, because of the timing, the allegation is that it benefited him in becoming elected.
So this could apply to so many different situations. Someone could file a lawsuit while you're running for office, and if you settle it because you're afraid of being embarrassed in a deposition and that embarrassment could hurt your election, then you're guilty of this crime, allegedly, right?
Well, I mean, the difference would be, I suppose, that if Mr. Trump had paid the settlement himself and not going through all these hoops to have the attorney pay it off so it couldn't be traced back, then the answer would be yes. But you also have to question the timing of how all this came about, because it all came out while he was running for president. So is he a victim in this
That's a
particular
great question.
circumstance?
I think he is a victim. I think she's the one extorting him for money. Why isn't she being charged?
Well, I mean, I could see the political ramifications of that, just getting crucified in the press for charging her. But I think that she herself, at least in this factual circumstances, that neither her nor Ms. McDougal actually contributed money towards the opponent's campaign. Although you can make that same argument that by bringing this lawsuit or bringing these claims during that time, that perhaps they were in effect trying to influence the election towards the people that Mr. Trump was running against.
Well, this stuff has been going on since time immemorial at every level of politics, from national to local to city council, since the beginning of time. So I think this is the first time we ever have had a case where someone's been actually pled guilty, not convicted, but pled guilty. So there's never been an actual case where this has gone to trial and actually someone's been charged and convicted. So is this just politics?
Well, it's definitely politics. I mean, it's politics 101, and it's more the optics than anything else. If we didn't have the lawyer involved in the middle of this, we wouldn't be hearing the same thing, or maybe not at all.
We're going to go into the next segment after this, and that's the impeachment question and whether this could lead to an impeachment of President Trump. And we'll be back after these messages.
Newsflash. Local attorney Paul Patter wins a $160 million verdict against a strip casino.
Paul Patter got me a $160 million verdict.
In a wreck, need a check? Don't settle for pennies on the dollar. At Paul Patter Law, we know how to win. We recently received one of the largest verdicts in Nevada history, $160 million. As I always say, don't get mad, get legal.
Paul Patter got me a $160 million verdict.
Welcome back to this episode of Vegas Lawyer. And again, we're here with Lenny Fink, who's been a trial lawyer for over 25 years here in Las Vegas. Welcome back, Lenny.
Thank you.
So let's get back into the topic and what we were talking about before, and that's Michael Cohen's plea bargain and whether that could lead to the impeachment of the president. Is the president in legal jeopardy, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, let's talk about what impeachment is, because I think that there's a lot of, especially in social media, there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what that really means. And those of us that are old enough to remember Bill Clinton, and when he was impeached, we got a lesson as to what that really meant. And there's only been two seating presidents that have actually been impeached, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, neither one of which was actually convicted. So the impeachment process is basically, it goes to the House of Representatives first, and they have to, by 51%, by simple majority, have to say that the president, under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, was guilty of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, whatever that means.
And don't those crimes have to occur while he's president, not prior to being president?
You know, it's not really defined. It's a good question. I would think, depending upon the circumstances, I think that it would not just count as to while he was president, especially if it was something that was concealed that happened before he was president. He concealed it while he was running. So
there's no case law on that. There's no decisions on that.
There are none.
And would there be case law, or would that be ultimately up to Congress and the members in the House to determine whether it rises to the level of impeachment or not?
Well, it would certainly be up to the members, on the first step, to the members of Congress. And really, it's a political issue. It's whether or not the House of Representatives and then the Senate want to impeach and then get rid of the president. What we've got here in reality is we have a majority in the House of Republicans. And unless they see a political advantage to the Republican Party to impeach this president, they're just not going to do it, no matter what the claims are that are made against him.
And they don't have to go forward. They don't have to have hearings. They don't have to hold impeachment hearings. And isn't that what this is all about? And that's what this election is going to be about in November. The Democrats are already calling for an impeachment of President Trump over this Cohen plea bargain. And so they have nationalized the election and made it about Trump. And where do you see that going?
Well, and that's a good point. That's exactly what they've done. And what you have is, and I forget the name of the congressman who's drafted up impeachment papers, I think twice, and has now said he's going to do it again. And you have Nancy Pelosi, who said that we shouldn't try to impeach him, especially because she knows that they're not going to be able to. She wants to wait to see what happens with the Mueller probe and see if there's something more that comes out of that at that point.
I hope they do, because that means every Republican is going to be motivated to get out and vote for their congressman and make sure that they retain the House and that the Democrats don't try to impeach the president.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head. I think unless and until there's political pressure on the Republicans that are in the House, there's not going to be an impeachment. They're not even going to get that far because there's no reason for them to do it because there's no advantage to do it. If, however, you take back with Richard Nixon and Watergate, and Richard Nixon would have been impeached had he not quit, there was a grassroots campaign, and clearly before social media, but there was that grassroots campaign, he needs to get out, and I think in that particular instance, a Republican-controlled House of Representatives would have impeached that president. Here, there's so many interesting things that are happening with the elections that are coming up, both local and national, that nobody wants to take that misstep right now. But certainly if there was an advantage and the Republicans thought that in the next wave of elections that they would do better by impeaching him, you'd probably see that. But right now, it doesn't look like that.
Let me ask you a legal question since you're a lawyer. Can Mueller, or anyone for that matter, a DA in Manhattan, can a sitting president be indicted, charged, arrested, put on trial?
You're going a little beyond my expertise, but I don't believe so. I think that it would certainly have to wait, and I think you'd have to, the process is the impeachment process. The problem is, how do you take who's the head of the armed forces, the head of the executive branch, and then indict them? I don't know how that can be done.
They're almost a sovereign. They embody the commander-in-chief. They embody the executive branch. You couldn't really take them out of action and say that they're not, lock them up or put them in a position under lock and key or in a jail or in a trial. It would be a threat to national security, wouldn't it?
I would think so. But then you say the other side of it. What happens if we have a president who shot somebody in cold blood? Right, and there's no question about it. What would they do then? Would they indict, or would they have to go through the impeachment process to do that, which you would think would happen pretty quickly?
There was actually an opinion issued in the Department of Justice back in the 80s that said that a sitting president could not be indicted because they do embody the executive branch, that the only avenue under the Constitution is impeachment and removal by the Senate.
Right.
So do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, there's certainly got to be some measure of protection for the president, more so than anybody else. So that would make sense to me. I mean, I think, as I recall, we had the same thing or something similar with Bill Clinton when he was sitting in office. There was a couple of suicides, and there was a young lady in Arkansas. I think that there was some claims that the Clintons might have had something to do with that. And I think even then the talk was, well, we've got to wait till he's either out of office or go through the impeachment process.
Well, that's an interesting question because Bill Clinton was compelled by the court to sit for deposition, a civil deposition.
Right, in the Paula Jones case, correct.
And so what if the president said, you know what, go pound sand, I'm not doing it. Who's going to arrest them? What could they do? Right? He could say, I am a separate branch of government, and the courts have no authority over me personally as sitting president. If the people of the country want to vote me out, if they want to impeach me, go for it. But you have no authority to tell me, direct me what to do.
In theory, I suppose he could, and I'm trying to remember what happened and why Bill Clinton ultimately agreed to sit for the deposition. I think there was pressure. I don't think he was made to do it. I think ultimately he just volunteered to get it done. But one of the issues that's a potential problem is, do you ever want anybody to know where the president is going to be at any one time? And that would be a problem with
And that's a national security threat. So we're going to have to stop it there. Thanks a lot, Lenny. I really appreciate it. Great discussion. And stay tuned for more episodes of Vegas Lawyer.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.